This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, first of all, congratulations. You won the pool. Yeah, you guessed it.
All of a sudden, an 817 election call doesn't seem so goofy, eh, guys?
Well, you called 837 because I have it written down.
Well, no, because you guys calmed me down. I said, in the end...
I see.
First I said 817, and then I said, no. Well,
Stop gloating.
You're
gloating. Yeah. He emailed us like 3 minutes after it was called last night.
I know.
Gloating.
Congratulations, Jim.
There you go.
Okay, so give me your quick take. First of all, just kind of round it out here with what happened. How much of what happened are you actually surprised with?
The only thing that surprises me, and it is something that I think should, be looked at by the opposition parties, is the extent of the CAQ victory last night. It's great, and we'll talk. Well, I know we're going to talk about the electoral system. 41% of the vote, they got 90 seats. That's an increase of 14 seats compared with 2018. But if you look at the results in those 90 ridings, at least 80 of them, the CAQ candidate beat their second-place opponent by a margin of 20 or 30, sometimes up to 40%. I heard you guys talking before about Jean, get a job, you shiftless immigrant Boulay. He got 50% of the vote. Pierre Mad Dog Fitzgibbon, the bane of the National Assembly Ethics Office, 51% of the vote. If there was a good turnout yesterday, if we're looking at 66%, guess what, guys? Those voters went out to support Francois Legault and the CAQ. And it's interesting because when you look at the Liberal ridings, which seem to have enjoyed a last-minute boost in support, the usual lopsided results, they were below. Participation was below the 66% average. So you cannot deny that Francois Legault won and won big last night. When you see now, at least, you've got Quebec Solidaire and the Parti Québécois screaming about electoral reform and pointing the finger at Legault and indeed at Dominic Anglade, because neither party supports going to proportional representation. Something's got to give, because you're either going to have to, base your party, mechanically change your party to be able to compete with a party like the CAQ on the ground. Because let's face it, those numbers from the regions yesterday, that wasn't a little miracle. They had people on the ground. That's what a political party that is fully mobilized looks like at the end of it. As for the Parti libéral du Québec, which is in fact the Parti libéral de Western Montreal, one riding in Laval and a piece of real estate in the Outaouais, rebuilding, yeah, but I think the rebuilding is going to have to come from the top. I'm sorry, Dominique Anglade is a fine person. She did her best in this campaign, but let's face it, she did not connect at all. Mm-hmm. Part of the problem, I think, was that over the course of the campaign, when she tried to be proactive, we had the environmental Liberal Party, we had the part of the economy Liberal Party, we had the nationalist kind of Liberal Party. We couldn't seem to make up our minds over just what the Liberal Party was supposed to be. Well, now is the time to make up your mind and and do it sooner rather than later. And I would respectfully, with all like I say, she worked really hard, and it was a tough job that she had, but she isn't the person to lead the Liberal Party. Simple as that.
As you describe it, I can't help but think to myself, Jim, and I happen to agree with you on as far as the Liberal Party is concerned. Could you not say the exact same thing about Quebec Solidaire?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was going to get to them because here's Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, the darling of the crowds from 2012. I can guarantee you that Quebec Solidaire's hopes of being the official opposition went down like a lead balloon the minute they announced their wealth tax plan and indeed their tax plan. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a genius to know that in the most highly taxed jurisdiction probably on the planet Earth, don't run around saying we're going to raise taxes for the good of the general public. It ain't going to work, okay? If only because the boomers who have saved up all that money are usually the ones who go out to vote. But that's a lesson learned. Now, Monsieur Nadeau-Dubois and Monsieur Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the Parti Québécois, they're saying, no, the democracy is under attack. We've got to change the system. Well, that's really swell. But the problem is it's not going to happen. So there's going to have to be some real adjustments made, if only because all those people out in the regions, it wasn't just the clutch of CAC fanatics. The flow in all of those ridings was very constant. As I say, at the average or above the average, clearly in some hard-fought ridings. I'm thinking of the both North and South. You're going to see recounts in both those ridings simply because it was way too close. I mean, 200 votes in both South, 400 in both North. And, I would put some money on the fact that at least one of those are going to go to the Conservative Party. That's just my
Interesting.
feeling. But it's got to change. This cannot continue. And it's not. You can change the system all you want, although it's not going to happen under the present regime. You've got to readjust. You have to understand that there are at least 3 Quebecs. There's the Quebec in the regions that basically want to protect what they perceive as their way of life. There is Montreal, and there are people who, basically immigrants and people who, I hate to say it, will continue to be targeted by this government as either threats to Quebec identity or threats to French. All these factors have to be considered. But right now, if the status quo is maintained, I guarantee you, we're going to be having CAC governments as far as the eye can see, simply because there is that huge divide. And with our current system, which is not going to change, that will be enough.
So just back to, first of all, I wanted to point out Verdun. I think there's going to be a recount there as well. It's a difference.
No, they're not.
They're not going to? The 400? Okay.
This just in, the PLQ, the press reporting, will not ask for a recount in Verdun.
Interesting.
460 votes. I thought that seemed like a lot to ask a recount for, but then again,
but she
so
hadn't
that's
conceded.
official.
That's
right.
why I was wondering if that was going to happen. Okay,
Aaron, I heard you guys talking earlier. The rule of thumb, usually, I don't think there's a hard number, but the rule of thumb is if it's less than 1,000 and you can convince a judge that perhaps, you're not saying that it got rigged, but perhaps this went wrong or perhaps that wrong. We have concerns about this particular polling station, whatever. They'll do it. It's not like hard and fast.
Oh, okay.
But even if it's a relatively small riding, if you have more than one poll, that increases your potential for mistakes being made. Mistakes that I'm sure are being made in good faith. But listen, last night, you're not talking to a guy who waves the pom poms for the CAC, but it was a triumph for Monsieur Legault. And it was basically the Liberal Party got hit by a freight train. What can I tell you?
Let me play this clip for you, Jim. This is today. So François Legault, the question asked here about, yes, there's obviously division, as last night's election showed us, the island of Montreal and pretty much everywhere else. And the question was, how are you going to heal those wounds and bring Quebecers together? Something he actually said he was going to do about a week or so ago. Here's the answer.
We're seeing a lot in the results of the election. We have Montreal and we have the rest of Quebec. And there's a division there. There's a big division. That's not a healthy thing in a democracy. How are you going to heal those wounds and bring Quebec together? Because right now it looks like we have 2 different planets.
Okay. Well, first, I think we did well in the last 4 years. We only had 2 MNAs, but I think we had a good relationship with the mayor, and we worked hard for Montreal. So we'll continue to do so. And I think also that we have to remember that I'm from Montreal. I know Montreal, and I know how important is Montreal for Quebec.
Jim, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know what in that statement, but...
I think it's very clear. I don't need any liberal MNAs telling me what to do in Montreal.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Simple as that. And this is why. You can have an ideology, you can campaign hard, but you're not going to have any kind of a team behind you unless you're aiming to win. When it's a contest to be head of the opposition, we're in a very, very sorry state of affairs, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
I still don't think Dominic Anglade's going anywhere, though. She said she's not. I know there'll be a leadership review, but I mean, is there somebody else chomping at the bit for that job?
Well, if you were looking for someone to lead the party, you've got to at least offer them a party that has a hope in hell of winning an election.
Exactly.
Now, let's, honestly, 2014 they had 70 seats, 2018 they had 31, 2022 they have 21. Do you see a trend there?
All right. I was going to ask the question, okay, I have a pretty good idea that François Legault will not be leading this party come 2026 in the next election. I couldn't help but watching, and I know you said this before, I saw Geneviève Guilbeault being interviewed last night on CTV, and I'm starting to look at her thinking she's the next person to head the CAC.
Of course she is.
entirely possible.
Yeah.
But then again, it's a much bigger caucus than it was.
True.
How many different sets of ambition must now be juggled for this government to sort of progress? It's going to be interesting times.
Ambition indeed. Jim, thank you.
Adamant.